When I was in my late teens, early 20s, I worked at a small mom and pop health food store. And this store had something in it that forever changed my perspective in life, in myself, and what it really means to be high value. This store I was working at, it was in a very cute village in New York. That's number one. Number two, it was small. It was also a health food store, so it was selling a lot of organic products. And then it was a mom and pop shop. So with these factors, this store was extremely expensive. Like the items we sold at this particular health food store was 3 times the amount of what someone would pay if they bought a similar item at a regular store. In pretty much every way, as a store, we were high value and we carried ourselves as such. We made sure the best of the best was on the shelves. We made sure that when customers came in, they were having a high value experience. In the produce area, if an orange were to somehow roll and fall onto the floor, even though we knew we cleaned the floor multiple times a day, we would get rid of that orange. If there were any fruits or vegetables that had even a slight bruise, it was not like a regular grocery store where a customer might spot something like that. They were taken out immediately. Only the best of the best was on the floor. In this very expensive store, there was a shelf similar to the one behind me. In the midst of this expensive, overpriced store was the clearance rack. Now, many of the items on this clearance rack was of high quality. Most of the things were the expensive brands we carried and the expensive items we carried. And they would be put on that rack for the most minuscule reasons. A lot of people assume things go on clearance when the expiration date is coming up. But for example, a box like this would get on clearance. Now, as you could imagine, things like that would happen often. And it would be for simple things like because it came off the shipping truck like that. A lot of times it was because of me or my coworkers and we're carrying boxes and boxes of something and one of them falls. Immediately, we would take the one that fell and mark it down. These items would be marked down, not just 50%, 75%, 80%, sometimes even 90%, just because of something so small like this. As a store, because we understood people were overpaying for items, we wanted them to feel like they were having the best of the best. So now let's say all of these pastas are in the pasta area for $6. This one will be on the clearance shelf for $1 or $1.50. Now I'm going to share the revelation I got almost a decade ago with this whole experience, and it was with a jar of peaches. Now I don't have a jar of peaches right now. We're going to use these chickpeas. Okay? I wasn't a regular in shelving the items. I was regularly on the register. So my friends are using a box cutter all day. And when you're opening box after box after box, you're answering the phone, you're opening boxes, you're checking the inventory, it's actually very normal for you to just slice something accidentally. A lot of the girls would slice their fingers every now and again. So it's not that uncommon for someone to just slice a label. And I remember this jar of peaches was literally sliced. Just imagine. And as our protocol required, it went right on the clearance rack. And I remember being so amazed by it that day. Sometimes the clearance rack would just be 50% off, but I remember this item went down so much. Oh, because of that little tear. And now I'm working at the register and the clearance rack is right in front of me. All day I was thinking about, I really want to buy those peaches. Like after my shift today, I am craving those peaches. I was looking at them all day, but I was like, no, a customer's probably going to buy them. Like they're dirt cheap and it was a huge jar. There's no way that it'd still be there by the end of my shift. And I saw something, not just with that jar of peaches, but with the entire clearance rack. Customers would not even acknowledge that shelf. Rarely would customers check out the clearance shelf. And I'm just gonna say, a lot of our customers were bougie. Like, they were bougie, there's nothing wrong with that. But it wasn't because the items were lesser price. It wasn't that they wanted to overpay. It's that people had the assumption that because those items were on the clearance shelf, they were on the clearance rack, that something was wrong with them. They assumed that all of the items that were on the clearance rack were expiring that day. They assumed that the cookies or chips that were on the clearance rack were probably stale. And I know this because I would ask them, when I would check out, I would ask them like, oh, is this all you wanted today? Did you check out the clearance rack? And some of their first responses would be, are those expired items? Some of them even thought that the clearance rack were items that were already expired. Like, don't people know that's illegal to sell? Anyway, at the end of that day, I ended up buying that jar of peaches on clearance and with my employee discount. What was empowering about that was not that I felt like I was stealing because I got it at such a low rate, is that I knew something about that jar of peaches that no one else knew. While other people thought it was expired, while other people thought something was wrong with them or it was damaged or something, I knew that jar was just delivered to the store. And I knew my friend just sliced it with the box cutter. Some things on the clearance rack would just rip a little because one of the girls was wearing jewelry and it caught onto the package. And I just felt led to get on camera and share this because I know there are people that have labeled you. There are people that said you were less than because of something you went through, because of maybe the way you look, maybe because an experience you had, or for whatever reason, you look different than your peers because you're a little behind right now. But I'm telling you right now, this does not make you damaged. It just doesn't. Yes, it's cute that the store I worked at did stuff like this, took things like this off the shelf. But let me tell you something. When you take this pasta out the box, it could still feed a whole family. It is still just as valuable. When I ate that jar of peaches, it was just as sweet, just as juicy, just as delicious than if this tag was not ripped. Like, using this example seems so silly and ridiculous, but you have to realize that a lot of the things that you feel less than about is also silly and ridiculous, and it's actually the enemy wanting to make you feel less than, wanting to make you feel you're not good enough because of what everyone else has said. All of these different things, guess what this is? This is a label. And I know these days we get caught up in name brands and designers, but the reality is labels don't really matter. What matters is what is truly valuable. That's why I like to watch those little cute skits or something where they ask celebrities or they ask people, do you have expensive taste? Or can you taste the difference between two different brands? Labels are labels, and you do not have to let what other people labeled you as be your identity. Just because people say, oh, you're less than because they're always gonna have something. In every area, when you are trying to find employment, it could be so degrading when you don't even have someone telling you, oh, you weren't really qualified because of this. These days, you get a generic email. The world will tell you you're not qualified because you don't have a bachelor's degree, you don't have a master's degree, you don't have this, you don't have that. You're too young, you're too old. These days with dating, it's like, oh, what's your height? Oh no, oh no. Let me see this girl's measurements. But you can't be fazed by any of those things because a lot of the times, those are assumptions. When people will walk past the clearance rack, they assumed that this is junk. And most of the time, they were the same exact items. They were the same exact high quality items all throughout the store. And the items on the shelf were not less value. They just weren't. I had to make this video because I know there is someone out there right now. You are giving people a discount because you feel you're damaged. You feel like you're not good enough and you're letting people have a discounted rate on you. And I want to say something else about this clearance rack. There were items on there because you might say, okay, well, Brianna, those items were damaged. You may not agree with me. You may think that this is really damaged. You may compare those 2 jars of peaches like, you know what? If I had to choose between a tag that's ripped and a tag that's not ripped, I'm going to choose the one that's not ripped. You may really think that that is damaged, and you may really think that you're damaged. But I'm going to tell you something about that clearance rack. A lot of times we had items on there that were not damaged, that did not have ripped labels, that weren't random things that my boss brought in. They weren't broken, cracked, or expiring in the next month or two. They were items that were new and fresh. What do I mean by that? I'm going to tell you. What a lot of companies do, a lot of big food companies that you know and love, actually probably all of them, is they send products when they are trying new products, trying new flavors, trying to expand. They take an idea all the way to its stage, but before they release it fully, where it's on commercials and all over the place, they want to test it to a smaller market. Think of Oreo. Let me even look it up. Crazy Oreo flavors. Sour Patch Kid Oreos. Cinnamon Bun Oreos. Jelly Donut Oreos. Okay, we didn't work with Oreos. Like I said, this was a health food store. But just for example, think of a company like Oreo. If they are coming up with a crazy flavor like Sour Patch Kids Oreos, they are not going to totally mass produce it when they haven't seen if people will like it, if people will buy it. And a lot of times they test it on a market and it doesn't work out. But anyway, my point is, a lot of big companies that we would have would give us brand new items. Be an organic cookie that's usually fluffy and they want to try a thin cookie. They've made all these cookies, oatmeal raisin, sugar cookies, chocolate chip cookies, and now they want to make those same cookies but thin. They would ship us, say, 100, 200 boxes. This was for our store to test and give sufficient feedback for them to see whether or not our customers like them and whether or not we would be interested in partnering and buying this new thing. Now, when this company sends us something new, we don't put them on the regular shelf because they don't have a barcode. They're not in our inventory. We don't know if we're going to get them again. We're not going to put something like calculated in the inventory of our system if we only have 100 items and we may never have them again. We would put containers like this in the front of our store or at the register, pour some of those new cookies in, let the customers try it, and the rest of those boxes would go onto the clearance rack. Brand new cookies, not damaged, not ripped, not misprinted label, not cut by my coworker, nothing wrong with them. But again, people walked past it every time because of their assumption of what the clearance rack is, because their assumption that there are things wrong with the clearance rack. That's why they're on clearance. Not knowing, and this is why I'm so empowered by this, because they did not know what I know. They're thinking, oh, those items are expired. But I knew those items just came off the shipping truck. I knew that those were new items, and the same people that didn't want to give those items a try would be the same ones 6 months later when this big company comes up with this new thing that are on commercials. Those same customers would want to sign up for our email list to get a notification when those items were back in stock, because they would be hot and off the shelves quickly, sold out. Because the truth is, those items were never less than or low value. Is that those customers just didn't see the value that the items had. And so what I need you to understand is don't let other people label you. It doesn't matter if other people don't see your value. Maybe you have been damaged. Maybe you have been through a lot of difficult things in your life and you are kind of like a banged up box, or maybe you're a bit torn, but there is nothing that can't be healed, period. Like, that is not your place forever. It's just not. That's why there's therapy. That's why there's prayer. But just because you've been through some things in life does not give others the right to mark your price all the way down 50, 75, 80, 90%. And you just let them because you think they're right. You think you're damaged. And what I'm trying to tell you is just like that jar of peaches that I thoroughly enjoyed almost a decade ago. Those peaches had the same value as the jar without a torn label. There are going to be some people that watches and they know that there are some peaches missing from their jar. They are feeling bad because they're not a person of integrity. They put others down. They say they're going to do something and they really just don't do it. They don't follow through. And for those people, you really have to work on that. You don't want to be damaged on the outside and inside. But for you who have just let a little ripped label mark down your price, you need to start seeing things different today. Stop giving people a discount because you think you're damaged. And you may not even be that torn label. Yeah, you've been through things in your life, but maybe you have healed. Maybe you are in a better place. But because other people are toxic, they have made you feel less than, when truthfully, you are like that big company that is coming up with a new fresh thing. Just because they overlooked you and they don't know what's happening yet, they don't know that you are filled with this greatness and potential because they can't see it yet. That still does not take away from your value. When I worked at that health food store, my coworkers and I were never swayed or intimidated by the customers coming and walking past the clearance shelf. We never said, wow, that has been on the shelf all week. Do you think something's wrong with it? No, because we were the ones that put it on there in the first place and we knew it was valuable. We didn't feel bad because other people didn't see the value. You cannot let the fact that people have ghosted you, you cannot let the fact that you haven't maybe found your close circle of friends yet, you cannot let the fact that maybe you're still single, maybe you haven't had the relationship that you want, you cannot let the fact that your life may not look like what you want it to look like right now. You can't let all of these things mark your value down. You can't let all these things get to your head like, maybe I should discount. No. You have to know that you are valuable. Put your shoulders back, put your chin up. If you are a person of character, if you are a person of integrity, if you do what you say you're going to do, if you follow through, if you commit to your word, when that human emotion of anger comes, you hold your tongue. When that human emotion of envy or jealousy comes, you say, you know what? God bless them. Okay, I want some things that they have, but God, I pray you continue to bless them. If you have done it for them, if they could achieve something like that, if they could have something like that, I know that mine is coming. I know that I have greatness in store for me too. If you can be there for others, if you could be a good friend, if you have that character and integrity, you have to know that you are valuable. So this is your sign. No more marking yourself down, saying that you're not high value, because you do have value and worth no matter what you have been through in life. And you might be that new fresh thing that people just haven't seen yet. Send this to 3 people to encourage them, because I believe the right word at the right time could really change someone's life. I'm Brianna from Self Love Starts Now, and I love you. Bye.